The cardiovascular system and its control. The overview of the cardiovascular system is the heart, the vascular system, and the blood. The cardiovascular system major functions. First, delivers oxygen, nutrients, removes carbon dioxide, other waste, transports hormones, other molecules, temperature balance and fluid regulation, acid-base balance, and immune function. So there are three major circulatory elements. First is a pump, which is the heart. Second is the channels or tubes, which is the blood vessels. Third is a fluid medium, which is the blood. So heart generates pressure to drive blood through vessels. Blood flow must meet metabolic demands. The heart. There are four chambers of the heart, the right and left atria. So RA stands for the right atria and LA stands for left atria. Top receiving chambers. Right and left ventricles. The RV means right ventricles. LV is left ventricles. Bottom, pumping chambers. Pericardium, pericardial cavity, pericardial fluid. So this is the part of the heart. So first is the aorta, the red, right and left pulmonary arteries, aortic valve, left pulmonary veins, left atrium, mitral valve, papillary muscles, left ventricle, descending aorta, anterior vena cava or inferior vena cava, interventricular septum, right ventricle, Chirdate tendineae, tricuspid valve, right atrium, pulmonary valve, right pulmonary veins, and superior vena cava. Blood flow through the heart. Right heart, which is the pulmonary circulation, pumps the oxygenated blood from body to lungs. Superior inferior vena cava, RA, which is the right atria, to tricuspid valve, RV means right ventricles, to pulmonary valve, to pulmonary arteries and lungs. Left heart, the systematic circulation, pumps oxygenated blood from lungs to body, lungs to pulmonary veins, to LA, which is the left atria, to mitral valve, to LV, which is the left ventricle, to aortic valve, and to aorta. Myocardium. Myocardium, which is the cardiac muscle. LV or left ventricles has most myocardium. Must pump blood to entire body. Thickest walls, hypertrophy. LV or left ventricles hypertrophies with exercise and with disease. But exercise adaptations versus disease adaptations very different. Only one fiber type, similar to type 1. High capillary density, high number of mitochondria, striated, cardiac muscle fibers connected by intercalated disc. Desmosomes, which is hold cells together. Gap junctions, which is to rapidly conduct action potentials. Myocardium versus skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle cells, large, long, end branch, and multinucleated. Intermittent voluntary contractions, CA or calcium cation release from SR. Myocardial cells, small, short, branch, one nucleus. Continuous involuntary rhythmic contractions, the calcium-induced calcium release. Myocardial blood supply. The right coronary artery supplies right side of heart, divides into marginal, posterior interventricular. The left main coronary artery, it supplies left side of heart, divides into circumflex, anterior descending, atherosclerosis to coronary artery disease. Intrinsic control of heart activity. Cardiac conduction system. The spontaneous rhythmicity, special heart cells generate and spread electrical signal. Sinoatrial node, atrioventricular node, AV bundle, Purkinje fibers. Electrical signal spreads via gap junctions. The intrinsic heart rate observed in heart transplant patients. SA node initiates contraction signal. Pacemaker cells in upper posterior RA wall. Signal spreads from SA node via RA and LA to AV node. Stimulates RA, LA contraction. AV node relays signal to ventricles. In RA wall near center of heart, delay allows RA, LA to contract before RV and LV. Relays signal to AV bundle after delay. AV bundle relays signal to RV, LV. Travels along interventricular septum, divides into right and left bundle branches, sends signal toward apex of heart. Purkinje fibers sends signal into RV and LV. Terminal branches of right and left bundle branches spread throughout entire ventricle wall. Stimulate RV and LV contraction. Extrinsic control of heart activity. Parasympathetic nervous system. Reaches heart via vagus nerve. Carries impulses to SA to AV nodes. Releases acetylcholine. Hyperpolarizes cells. Decreases HR, force of contraction. Decreases HR below intrinsic HR. Intrinsic HR 100 beats. Normal resting HR is 60 to 100 beats. Elite endurance athlete 35 beats. Opposite effects of parasympathetic. Carries impulses to SA and AV nodes. Releases norepinephrine, facilitates depolarization, increases HR, force of contraction. Endocrine system can have similar effect. Increases HR above intrinsic HR. Determines HR during physical, emotional stress. Maximum possible HR 250 beats. Electrocardiogram. ECG or electrocardiogram, recording of heart's electrical activity. So 10 electrodes, 12 leads. Different electrical views, diagnostic tool for coronary artery disease. There are three basic phases: the P wave, the atrial depolarization, QRS complex, the ventricular depolarization, the T wave, ventricular repolarization. Cardiac arrhythmias. First is the bradycardia. Second is the tachycardia. Third is the premature ventricular contraction. Fourth is the atrial flutter, fibrillation. Fifth is the ventricular tachycardia. Sixth is the ventricular fibrillation. Cardiac terminology: cardiac cycle, stroke volume, ejection fraction, and cardiac output. Cardiac cycle: all mechanical and electrical events that occur during one heartbeat. Diastole, relaxation phase, chambers swell with blood, twice as long as systole. Systole, contraction phase. QRS complex to T wave, 1/3 of cardiac cycle. Contraction begins, ventricular pressure rises, atrioventricular valves close, semilunar valves open, blood ejected, at end, blood in ventricle, and minus systolic volume. Stroke volume, ejection fraction. So this is the stroke volume of blood pumped in one heartbeat. Second is ejection fraction, percent of EDV pump. Cardiac output, total volume of blood pumped per minute. Q equals HR times SV. Third is resting cardiac output. The vascular system, the arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, and veins. So when we say arteries, it is to carry blood away from heart. Arterioles control blood flow, feed capillaries. Capillaries is site of nutrient and waste exchange. Venules is collect blood from capillaries. Veins is carry blood from venules back to heart. So blood pressure, systolic pressure, diastolic pressure, mean arterial pressure. General hemodynamics. So blood flow required by all tissues. Pressure, force that drives flow. Third is the resistance, which is force that opposes flow. General hemodynamics. Easiest way to change flow. Arterioles resistance vessels. And this is the general hemodynamics blood flow. Distribution of blood. Blood flows to where needed most, at rest, during heavy exercise. Intrinsic control of blood flow. The ability of local tissues to constrict or dilate arterioles that serve them. Alters regional flow depending on need. So there are three types of intrinsic control, which is the metabolic, endothelial, and myogenic. So this is the definition of the metabolic mechanisms, endothelial mechanisms, myogenic mechanisms. Extrinsic neural control of blood flow. Upstream of local, intrinsic control, redistribution of flow at organ, system level. Sympathetic nervous system innervates smooth muscle in arteries and arterioles. Distribution of venous blood. At rest, veins contains 2/3 blood volume. Venous reservoir can be liberated, sent back to heart and into arteries. Integrative control of blood pressure. Blood pressure maintained by autonomic reflexes. Baroreceptors, also chemoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, and muscle. Return of blood to the heart. Upright posture makes venous return to heart more difficult. So there are 3 mechanisms assist venous return. First is the one-way venous valves. Second is the muscle pump. Third is the respiratory pump. So blood. So there are 3 major functions of the blood: the transportation, temperature regulation, and acid-base balance. Blood volume 5 to 6 L in men, 4 to 5 L in women. Whole blood, plasma plus formed elements. So this is the plasma, the 55 to 60% of blood volume. So formed elements 40 to 45% of blood volume. Hematocrit, total percent of volume composed of formed elements. So red blood cells, no nucleus, cannot reproduce. So this is the hemoglobin, the second one. The blood viscosity is thickness of blood, twice as viscous as water. Viscosity as hematocrit. Plasma volume, mass as red blood cells.
Good day everyone, I am Franz Zorin Avinjo and I am from BPE2A, and today we are going to talk about the cardiovascular system. But first, what is cardiovascular? Cardiovascular can be thought of as the transport system of the body. So this system has 3 main components: the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood itself. The heart is a system that pumps, and the blood vessels are the delivery routes. So what are the functions of the cardiovascular systems? There are many functions of the system, but I will be giving you only 4 functions of the cardiovascular. So it circulates the oxygen and removes the carbon dioxide to your body. It also provides cells with nutrients and protects the body against disease and infection. And it also clotting the blood from bleeding. Even if there are a lot of functions of the cardiovascular system, there are main functions of the system. Therefore, it is to maintain the blood flow to all the parts of the body because it is allowing them to survive. Veins deliver use from blood from the body and back to the heart. In this topic about the cardiovascular system, we will be answering 10 questions. I will be answering the 2 and the rest of the 8 questions will be answered by my groupmates. So the first question is, describe the structure of the heart. Okay, the heart has 2 atria that serves as the receiving chambers and the 2 ventricles that serves as the pumping chambers. The right side pumps the oxygenated blood to the lungs, while the left side pumps oxygenated blood to the other tissues. During the sudden exercise, the left ventricle has an increased demand to deliver blood, leading to the hypertrophy. The second question is, what events take place that allow the heart to contract and how is heart rate controlled? So an electrical signal is generated by the cardiac muscle, allowing the heart to contract on its own. The SA node creates an electrical impulse that is sent through the atria, triggering the atrial myocardium to contract. The sympathetic, parasympathetic, and the endocrine systems control the heart rate. What is torsional construction of the heart and why it is important during exercise? As inotropy also increases during exercise, more potential energy is produced during cytoly through various twisting construction. Resulting is greater diastolic and twisting and they're allowing for diastolic feeling to occur more rapidly. What is the difference between cytoly and diastole and how do they relate to SBP and DBP? The difference between cytoly and diastole is the former is the ventricular construction. The latter is ventricular or relaxation. SBP and DBP together make up one blood pressure, where the higher pressure is the artery means a higher ventricular construction and low ventricular relaxation means low artery pressure.
So what is the relationship between pressure, flow, and resistance? So blood flows from high to low pressure, and pressure differences from opposite ends of vessel is what causes blood to flow. Resistance creates a difference in pressure and provides blood flow resistance. How is blood flow to the various regions of the body controlled? So blood flow is primarily controlled by vasoconstriction and vasodilation. These processes divert blood flow to where it's needed most. Changes in blood vessel size can direct both blood pressure and blood flow to supply its specific parts of the body.
Number 7. How does muscle blood flow increase during exercise despite increased sympathetic nerve activity that favors vasoconstriction? So the regulation of skeletal muscle blood flow and the oxygen delivery to constructing skeletal muscle is complex and involves the mechanical effects of muscle construction, local metabolic, red blood cell, and endothelium-derived substances, and the sympathetic nervous system or SNS. So with advancing age in humans, skeletal muscle blood flow is typically reduced during dynamic exercise, and this is due to a lower vascular conductance, which could ultimately contribute to age-associated reductions in aerobic exercise capacity. So, in a primary predictor of mortality in both healthy and diseased aging populations. So, for number 8, describe the 3 important mechanisms for returning blood back to the heart when someone is exercising in an upright position. So, the 3 important mechanisms for returning blood back to the heart while exercising upright are metabolic regulation, endothelium, and the myogenic response. So metabolic regulation causes arterioles to dilate by releasing vasodilating chemicals to allow more blood to flow to the area. The endothelium triggers mediate vasodilation, initiating the process of vascular smooth muscles, delivering blood containing nitric oxide. The myogenic response creates pressure inside the vessels, which causes both vasodilation and vasoconstriction.
Number 9. Describe the mechanisms involved in inspiration and expiration. Inspiration uses intercostal muscles and the diaphragm. The ribs and sternum are moved by the intercostals while the diaphragm contracts, flattening in the process. Expiration relates to the relaxing of elastic recoil of the lungs. The diaphragm returns to its normal position when relaxed, and as the intercostals relax, the sternum and ribs also return.